Hi, Dr. Sasse here from Sasse Surgical. Some of you might have heard about a recent study coming out of Europe, a multi-center study looking at this question of whether one can be, quote, both fat and fit. At least that's how the media portrayed it. So I just thought I would take a little moment to examine that study and tell you what it really did find and what that means for us, I think, in terms of how we ought to approach our lives going forward to reduce risks. So this was a pretty large study. This is also what's called a cross-sectional study. So it's not the kind of study where we as doctors or healthcare providers are providing an intervention and then following it over many years to see what actually transpires. This is more of a cross-sectional study, even though it's a very large one, looking at 500,000 people. And what arises from this examination of all of these people is not quite what we were hoping for. What we were probably hoping for was that, yes, exercise and activity that is so-called fitness would make up for the possible negative health effects of obesity and being overweight. But in fact, that was not true. In fact, what they found was that obesity remains the primary driver of a lot of negative risk factors and health events. Such as type 2 diabetes development of hypertension, of increased cholesterol. And so this is one in a fairly long line of studies that have kind of debunked this notion that, don't worry about the excess weight as long as you're staying active and being fit. In fact, the conclusion of most public health experts is the opposite. And it's a little bit of a tough pill to swallow, but what it is really telling us is that the bigger risk factor really is the weight, and that it is conferring these elevated risks of hyperlipidemia, type 2 diabetes, hypertension, and a number of other things that stem from it, like atherosclerotic disease, kidney failure, stroke, etc. So instead of kind of our national sort of public health orientation being aimed at exercise and fitness because of the difficulty of taking weight and excess weight on a head-on way, we probably ought to be spending a lot more time, energy, and resources in trying to figure out how to reverse the obesity epidemic. What are more of its underlying causes, and why are so many people, not just Americans but around the entire world, gaining weight and battling obesity as they age into adulthood and later life. This is not a surprise to me following this literature, but it seems to be a surprise to many people in the media as I read the coverage, as they were expecting it to be sort of a study to show us that yes, there is such a thing as being fit and fat. Probably not true, unfortunately. All right, well, I hope that wasn't too much of a downer, but let's stay positive and focus on finding ways to reduce that weight and reduce those risk factors in this hopefully newer, better, brighter year. And I wish you great health.